Hey everyone, Egman here with another video. Today we're going to go over the updates to the banned and errata list that came out, a couple days ago. So I know I'm like the last person to talk about it, but I still want to have a standard video over it. I did talk about it online in a couple places and also on my Twitch stream that I had last Friday to go over the red and yellow cards that were dropped. So if you want to, I've been doing that pretty consistently the last couple of Fridays. I'm not sure if there's going to be any new reveals this Friday, but I'll probably start maybe doing some untapped games or something. I don't. It's a Friday during quarantine. I don't have anything better to do, so definitely follow me there. I also do the stream on YouTube as well and re-upload it, so that's where these kind of card reviews come from as well. But enough talking about that. Let's go and finally talk about the erratas and new banned cards from this updated list. All right, right on their website, they have this announcement. Greetings, DBS CG fans. We're adding 6 cards to the ban list and 5 cards to the errata list for the release of Rise of the Unison Warrior. UW01. As we kick off this new series, we ensure the meta enjoyable for as many players as possible. To achieve this and better represent the direction we'd like to take the game in, we're issuing more bans than usual. We ask you understand. We ask for your understanding during this process and hope that all DBS CG fans can enjoy the upcoming meta. So 11 cards changed is pretty big. And it's also kind of weird that it's at during this time where there haven't been any real official events for like 2 months as well. But I don't know. Normally, Bandai's been pretty good on ban lists, and up to this point, they've never had a ban list that I haven't enjoyed. So I think they've been really consistent in that way, and also they've been keeping up with their consistency where they say. Every time they're about to release a new set, they're going to ban and fix some cards, and then halfway through a set they do the same. They didn't do anything halfway through last set just because literally no one was playing anything, so there wasn't any reason for it, and I bet there wasn't there's a bit of a lack of data for it. But let's go over first the ban cards. So we've got Gogeta, Hero Revived. They say originally resigned thinking games would end on turn 5 or 6. However, the game is becoming much more interactive now, and we're trying to move away from all-purpose cards powerful enough to win you the game on their own. This card no longer fits the direction we want the game to go in, earning a spot on the ban list. For me, for this Gogeta, I think it's about time to retire it anyways, especially since getting to 5 energy is super easy nowadays, especially with conjunction with there's more good energy ramp kind of cards. Sparking isn't really a big thing too, but like with the new Zeno Unison card, and I also know like with the new like Piccolo card, like the Piccolo Surge Leader, getting to 5 energy was super easy, especially because you can ramp if you're getting aggressed against. But I think this card was probably a little bit too good. They did kind of there's that Jiren that prevents this card from going off and everything, but I think they made a good call on this, and I don't know. This card's been like a weird spot for me for a while, just because yes, it's obviously a super good card, but it's not like I don't know. It's a win condition on itself, but you have to have a lot of setup and everything, and I think they just thought it was too generic for its cost. It's sparking isn't a big deal. Son Goku and Vegeta cards are like a dime a dozen in a lot of ways, and having Barrier and Deflect on you don't have to have, it's not restricted to any leader color or anything like that. The biggest thing is you have to have 2 blue energy and sparking. So I think they're trying to tailor kind of big boss monsters like this as like more like specific costs for it, like specific conditions for it, and I felt like they thought this condition was a little bit too generic. So I get that. I don't know. It's just kind of like the end of an era for this card, I guess, for a while, because it's been around for a year and a half now, BT5. So and I guess it kind of makes sense too, because this is like this was like the last card, or no, this is like the first card of the Shenron's Wishes block. I don't know. We're like 2 blocks away now. Well, now we're going into the Unison Warrior block. So I don't know. I think if you're upset about this card being banned, let me know. I think the consensus is it's about time to kind of move away from this card. Next up, Android 21 Violent Predator. They have said originally this card was meant to promote the use of multicolor cards. However, with the UW series, we want more monocolor decks to be viable as well. This card prevents players from effectively using monocolor cards and could potentially lead to a meta where monocolor decks are less effective, so we're adding it to the ban list. All right, so I agree with this reasoning in a sense of like, yeah, of course, if this card's around and energy ramp is a thing, you're going to have a really bad time if you're playing a monocolor deck. I guess the only thing is that I don't know, something that I kind of felt with the Shenron stuff is that they were really cool decks and they made a couple of them and then they just completely stopped. And I don't think that was like necessarily bad, and I know it's like the idea of a block, but I don't know. They didn't ban like any cards from that previous block because of this, and now we've got this Android 21, and I think people are going to be trying to play multicolor forever. I mean, like if you look at Magic and our other cards where you can have like colors of energy and that kind of stuff, dual color kind of stuff is pretty, there a lot of the time. So it's kind of weird that they deleted this big boss monster, but I could see that it can be kind of, I don't know, it could be pretty difficult in a meta where monocolor decks are prevalent. But I don't know. I think this is a really cool card, and if they maybe I don't know if they were thinking about errating it either. But instead of choosing all, you could say like choose up to 5 of your opponent's non-multicolor energy and battle cards ignoring barrier. That would probably be like a better way for this card to exist in the current meta. But yeah, I mean it's kind of the biggest thing about this is it just feels forced. Like you're kind of forced to play the monocolor cards, and I could probably do another video about having Bandai gets to kind of decide the meta and steer the meta, and we decide it at the end. So they're steering it towards more monocolor things, which isn't, I don't think, bad for the state of the game, but it could be bad for players who don't like that idea. And there's the whole thing about buying product. But I think this could be a big juggernaut if this wasn't banned, but it is kind of unfortunate that's the case, in my opinion. I thought it was a real cool card, and I mean, it's not super generic like Gogeta is, and you have to get to 8 energy, which I mean can happen, but it's still like a chore, right? Like you getting to 8 energy is a way bigger chore than getting to 5 energy, right? That's a way bigger commitment for that just to play this guy. So I think I don't know. If I trust them to say that this was degenerate in the kind of the upcoming meta, but I think this is like the big hit that most people haven't been. I don't know. Like Gogeta got away because they also got Android 21. I think a lot of people are okay with that trade, but they missed Android 21. These next two, what was it? We created this card to deal with objection and SS3 and other ramp ordering cards. However, since those cards are no longer threats that they once were, i.e. they're banned, we believe this card is unnecessary to limit future card design and thus reserving a ban. And I think this is the same thing, yeah. So both these cards, these both came out in like 2018, like August, September 2018. And I mean, now that they're doing ramp, but they're being a lot more conscientious about it, I totally get it. No one is playing this card anyways, and no one is playing this guy. I mean, I made a video about this card a couple weeks ago about. I still have it on my desk actually. It's right here. Boom, here he is. Like, this card needed to get away just because they kind of flubbed the ruling on it too, and there's just so much like weirdness around it. So I'm okay with this card just being gone, especially since like the reason it existed doesn't mean anything anymore. So that's fine by me. Piccolo, meh. I mean this was a little bit more specific. It was specific to blue, which is like a weird like anti-blue ramp was this blue card. I don't think it was like a broken card, but like if you're running Shenron's deck, you could cheat this out with assembling the squad and all that. But yeah, they're trying to do ramp decks, but they're trying to control how you ramp cards. So I think they're better about that. I still think like Dende. I'm surprised they don't have Dende because that could easily hit ramp deck. Like that hurts ramp decks. I think more generically, it's easier to run that card and just have it work, because I think Dende just says as long as your opponent puts like a card in their energy by a skill, that's so much easier to do with Dende than having like a 1 deficit, especially since a lot of the new like Zamasu ramp kind of cards goes to a like they ramp for a turn, like it's just temporary ramp for the turn, which I think is also cooler, by the way. I think that makes more sense, but Dende will still hit because they added a card to their energy with a skill. So I don't know. It's just interesting that they didn't choose Dende. I mean, no one's playing Dende, and I know it's 3 energy to do it, but it's just very curious to me that it wasn't. I'm not sure if they're considering it or not. But all right, then we've got Plan for Destruction. Originally, this card was designed to promote energy ramping strategies when we combined with Goku Black and fused Zamasu's Supreme Strike. But with the release of Unison Warrior 01. Zeno Edge of Space Time, which is, I believe, the super combo, would allow players to swap this card out of their energy and into their hand and then ramp even more. We believe this card is unnecessarily limiting future card design and thus deserving a ban. Yeah, I mean, it's they pretty much have the combo right there, and I think there's better ramp options in this card anyways. And I think that the design space that this card has been replaced by other cards. So I understand why this card could be kind of detrimental to that. I'm not sure how good the combo with what is it? I mean, for one super combo you get to untap an energy. You just pretty much, it's a super combo that just ramps for one, right? And you also get to 20k power defense because you use super combo Zeno, then you untap or you put this back to your hand and put Zeno into your energy. I don't remember how it works. You do that, you swap a card, and you just use plan for destruction as well. So that's not like terrible, but I can see how like this combo could be pretty bad. And like using like energy ramp for like no like with energy ramp kind of gets balanced by the idea of using cards in hand to do so. And so since this kind of cheated around that, I could see how they didn't like that as a ramping option anymore. So this is fine to ban, in my opinion, just because there's that kind of technique there. And additionally, I feel like they replaced this with alternative ways to ramp, which makes it okay in my mind. Next up, we've got Turos Unstoppable Ghost Warrior. I'm very happy with this card being banned. I'm not sure about y'all, but this card has been used to take down opponent's life faster than originally intended and has unforeseen interactions with Unison cards that could create unbalanced gameplay. We believe this card could create an unenjoyable gameplay experience and thus is deserving a ban. So the fact, like I've said this a couple times before, but dual attack is very good at getting rid of Unison cards in a lot of ways, like just pressuring Unison cards. Especially since you can't, they can't combo over it. The only ways they can stop damage is by using negates. And so playing this for free and then getting a dual attack for 0 energy, and it's 15k if you need to be 15k, is pretty absurd. And I think if this card was unique, if this had like the new unique tag, this card would be fine. And we'll like tongue in cheek, I'm pretty sure they're going to print something like that. Just that just says. This card's unique. I'm actually surprised they didn't give it a unique tag, but maybe they thought that'd be too, overstepping an Errata. But I think like this card playing it once per turn or only having one on the field is probably all right. No doubt there's probably some ways to like blow it up after the first swing and then play another one. But I think the biggest thing about this is that there's just been like for the first time in a while they've tried to make some like really good like black archetypes and like have it more like accessible as a color instead of like just a support color. It's kind of becoming its own finally after like 2 years. So in that case, having this card in just a deck archetype that it's just too good of a card that has too many like good scenarios for it. So I think it deserves the ban. I think it's super powerful. I think, and I've said this before too, like this card was so good that it made bad decks playable just because they could play this card. That's my opinion. Like I've seen like a lot of Demigod decks, and Demigod is okay. Demigod is not bad, but this card definitely made the deck playable, or viable in a lot of ways. And if you take this card away, I don't think the deck is as viable, and I think that speaks more about the card than the archetypes it's trying to support. So I think this card's fine to go. If you don't, let me know. We're going to Erratas. Alright, so Goku Black, this card works far too well with the new Zeno Cosmic Unison. It would cause players to ignore other ramp strategies, so we're creating an Errata for it. And what the Errata is that after you place an energy with this card's active mana skill, you can't place cards in your energy area for the turn. So it just has like the same tag that the new Zeno Unison card had. I know there's been like a lot of debate going on like whether this is like a good ability or not, like if the double ramp is worth it, because you're losing like a lot of card advantage with it. But I definitely think like it was a kind of like a cheese interaction in a lot of ways. So I'm happy they took care of it. I still think this leader isn't like bad, especially with all the new support, and it is a Goku Black leader. But this is also like one of the leaders that I hope gets rebooted later. So hopefully there's like some space for that now with the Errata going on with this guy. But yeah, I think this had to go. I kind of made a post where I think the interaction between it and Zeno Unison, something has to change, because I think even if it's just unlikely and it just takes a lot of resources, I still think it's just a bit not what they intended for the card, and I think it could lead to some like really cheesy and like just games where you just lose and you can't do anything about it. So I'm happy they addressed it. I know a lot of people are I'm not sure how people are feeling about this. I'm not sure if they're upset about it or because I know a lot of people are having fun playing this set 2 leader because of it. and everything. And this is one of my favorite leaders, so I'm sorry to see this happen, but I think it's good for the state of the game. And like either they got this errata, or there's some kind of FAQ having to or what Q&A for this Goku that would have to be fixed. I don't think the interaction should work as people have been doing it. So now it doesn't, and there's that. Next up, we've got Supreme Kai of Time, Unison of History. I'm very unsurprised. Like I knew this was going to happen in one way or the other, either a Q&A or this card being errated. But as written, this card text allows for the unintended interaction with Paragus, Father of the Demon, and Chile and Limo kind hard, which would allow players to add cards to their life. Which, I mean, whatever. I know a lot of people were cheesing about it, and this is kind of cheese because Chile. Let me read it over. So the change is that instead of saying add one card to your life to your hand, then choose one card in your hand and place it in your life, is now you may add one card in your life to your hand. If you do, choose one card from your hand and place it into your life. So it just means that you just can't add cards without taking a card. So you can't like end with more life than you had at the beginning. So I think that was a good call, and I think a lot of people were. I don't think it was like a good interaction, to be honest. I think because like going -1 to heal once per turn, I think it's like not super good. But I don't know. We haven't had any life healing abilities so far, so I guess it's kind of hard to determine that. But yeah, I don't think it's an interaction they wanted, and I don't think it affected a lot of people. But I'm glad they cleared it up, and it doesn't work like how this would immediately show it to be. So next up, we've got this Son Goku warrior Son Goku warrior that crossed time. The only difference is that if this card is removed from a battle area by an opponent's skill, so it's instead of just by a skill. So I think that just makes it worse. Let's see. If your leader's trunk future card and you return this card to its owner's hand, oh, that's why. At the end of your opponent's turn, if you haven't added life to your hand due to your opponent's attack, choose one in your hand and play it. So he goes into hope for victory. So it's just meaning that you can't use this card and then remove it from the board and then use its other auto because you removed it by its own skill. I think that makes sense. This would probably be too accessible for a 1-drop common card to do so. So I agree that by opponent's skill is probably better. But I mean, I don't think it's like still a bad card because either you get to play the Son Goku Hope for Victory for free, or what is it? Or if they try to get rid of it, you get free ramp. So both I think are fine. All right, here are some big boy erratas. So Son Goku, Surge of Divinity. So we're trying our best to design cards to make the game more interactive. However, this card's defensive capabilities are far too high and can be used with many different decks to stall for several turns, leading to longer game times. We're adding an errata for this card to make sure it doesn't cause games to stall out in the future. All right, this is my opinion because I barely use this leader because I'm a meta hipster and everything. But I think they also, I mean, we'll talk about it. Piccolo also got hit, and I've said this a lot of times before. Bandai is not necessarily they make some really cool stuff for the game, and I think like a lot of the new mechanics work out really well. But they have a problem sometimes on making like the first edition for it being a little bit too overtuned. We saw this with like the Shenron leader. We saw this with like the first set of Overrealm cards, and I'm feeling like we're seeing it again with these Unison cards. These are the first Unison leaders, not Unison. These first Surge leaders, and Goku and Piccolo probably made up over half the meta for the last couple months, just because they're both just super good for Surge leaders, and I think it's time for that to kind of be fixed. And so that's what they decided to do. I agree with it. I think I guess let's talk about what they did for this guy. So they pretty much made the active main battle once per turn. If it's your turn and your life is at 5 or less, instead of just on either player's turn, and which pretty much meant like this card, like the biggest thing for this card is that it had defensive capabilities, which I think I guess here maybe the biggest thing about these two cards too is that this is a red and yellow leader and this is a green and blue leader, and these are both super good leaders and they're moderately generic as well. And so if you're running a deck that doesn't require a specific archetype, and you're saying, oh cool, am I running a red deck? Cool, probably play Goku as my leader, and then splash in some yellow, and then I've got probably a pretty solid deck in a lot of ways. And I felt like Piccolo was the same thing. So and there's two ways to think about diversity in this game, and it's either we have a couple of leaders, but the leaders can have a bunch of different decks, and so we still have that diversity, or we have a lot of leaders, but there's not a lot of diversity within the archetypes of those leaders. And so I'm thinking most people try to go for a lot of different leaders with different archetypes, or with the same archetype, compared to a couple leaders with a bunch of archetype support around them. So this I think will help break up this a little bit. I think this Goku is still great, and the fact that you can still like get it just means that this card's just purely offensive instead of potentially defensive. And they really, in my opinion, hit the nail on the head, because playing against this deck, you can't, if you try to overextend, they'll just turn off all your abilities, and then you feel really bad about it. And this leader just generates a lot of value, and the fact that it's red and yellow just has so many cards that you can use with it that require just a red or yellow leader. I think it made sense to knock this down a peg. If they wanted to have this ability still around, they could also, instead of having it if it's your turn, they could have made it if your life is at 3 or less. I think that would have fixed it. 5 or less is pretty dang high for this card, and I felt like these abilities were just too good to have it at 5 or less. So, but now that it's only on your turn, I think they're fine. But the ignoring barrier and negate their Ghost rotation in the turn, this effect was almost generically always better on your opponent's turn. So it's going to be a big knock on that. And just having a plus 10k, like double beaning on your leader for free, is very good for defense too. But we'll see if Surge Q still survives. I think it's still a really good leader, and it has a lot of potential for it. But it definitely is a little bit nerfed. But I think people will still try to play it, and I think they will still see success. Piccolo, on the other hand, he's oh man, look what they did to my boy. So we're trying our best. I think it's the same. Okay. We're trying our best to design cards to make game more interactive. However, this card allows player to gain advantage while also ramping to use counter cards and play high-cost cards early. We believe this card will unnecessarily limit future card design, so we're issuing an errata for it. So what they did is that at the beginning of your turn, look at the top card of your deck and place it on top or bottom of your deck. Okay. If you want my true opinion how to fix this card, instead of having this auto once per turn at the beginning of your turn, it would be just an auto once per turn. When when this card swings at a card, look at the top card bottom, or look at the top card of your deck, place on top or bottom, and draw one. I still think, like, the fact that this is a surge card that doesn't draw anything anymore, I think it just cripples, right? Like, cards need to gain advantage, leaders need to gain advantage on their front side nowadays. That's like the kind of the golden rule for good leaders. There's some cards that can get around that, and it's usually because they awaken super duper early. But Piccolo doesn't awaken super duper early. He also doesn't gain a bunch of advantage on his awaken side. He kind of gets like 4 if you hand, but it's not like a lot of advantage from. And I don't know, it just feels super duper neutered. So. And part of the reason I felt like this card was too good at what it was doing was because you could just generate card advantage without interacting with your opponent. I think they definitely identified that part of the card, but I would instead wanted to have seen forcing some kind of interaction. Like, even if it literally was, when this card swings, look at the top card, put on the bottom or top, and then draw a card. I think that would have been fine. I think this card, the leader, would be a little bit better for it. Because, that's why this Goku's so good, right? Because it still gets +1, because every time it swings, and I think is it on just the leader card? I don't remember. It might just be on a leader card, but every time this card swings, you get to draw 2 and then discard 1. It might be the opposite order. You might discard 1, then draw 2. But it's still, like, just making it have no card advantage on the front and technically the back, like no passive card advantage, just makes this leader feel really bad, in my opinion, and everything. So I don't know. I feel like we only got 6 surge leaders, and it doesn't look like we're getting anytime soon, which is a big kind of upsetness to me, especially since so many of them are so archetype dependent, which kind of sucks in my opinion, because the red blue one was just, you know, specifically Universe 7, and the blue yellow one was like completely Universe 6. So I feel like they're like, of course they'd have to be very careful with these cards because having two colors on a leader is inherently very powerful, but I feel like there's a lot of design space that they could have explored with these leaders, and they just kind of made these 6 and then decided these 2 are too powerful. And I think they are too powerful. There's a reason that they've been played for so long, but I think there might have been a better way around it, but I guess we won't see it. So these are effective will be June 5th for pretty much everywhere, except for France and Italy, which will be their release day. No cards removed. Next ban is planned to be announced before the release of Series 11, and there's that. So this is my big spiel. It took like half an hour. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know if you agree with my opinions or not. In general, this will definitely pave, I think, a good road into our new, not only a new set, but a new block. Kind of getting rid of a bunch of cards that were kind of, not actually a bunch of cards, but a few cards that were meanies at the end of last block. And, I think I don't know, there are some preemptive stuff, like Android 21, and also, like the Goku Black stuff. I think a couple of these preemptive stuff, I think, makes sense. And, I don't know. I think it makes sense to make sure that, like, these leaders aren't, like, the best when, like, if you make new cards and then everyone just goes back to the old leader and play them, I don't think that makes it really exciting. But I also know a lot of people like running the same stuff over and over again. So I don't know. Let me just know your opinions. It's hard to say, especially when I'm not at locals and I'm not talking to people as much. And I want to just make sure that everyone gets their opinion out there, and I can see some that I haven't seen or haven't really thought about. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Make sure to follow me on Twitch because I'm doing streaming a little bit more than usual, and I'll catch you all next time.